Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and it's time to start our board meeting tonight. I'd just like to welcome everybody here. At this time, if everyone would stand, we could say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For our first item is to amend or accept tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any amendments? Do I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support to accept tonight's agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is receive delegations and communications. And to start this, our city mayor, Mr. Joey Roberts, is here with us tonight, and so he's here to give us an update on the water project and how and if and when it might affect school and traffic. And so if Joey would come up and to the mic and give us a little update.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Before you, you have a proposed construction schedule by street. As you guys probably know, we've already started the water project up on Sabina Street. So we'll be on Sabina, Pine Street, and West Elm. That should conclude around August 16th. The one concern will be the West Euclid and Stony Corners for the week of August 16th, running through the 30th. I know you guys have some bus traffic that go through there. Both lanes will be open, it looks like at this point. That water main will go in the shoulder. But if you guys wanted to use the industrial park loop, that would be an option too. So that's something you guys may want to discuss. But like I said, both lanes should be open. It just may be a little slower. Next is the concrete and paving work on the above listed areas. That should start around August 30th. And then we'll move to East Euclid and Harrison Street. That should start the week of September 6th. I know we have some students over in that area that like to walk. In September, hopefully it's still warm enough to walk. So there will be some street closures there. One lane will be open though the entire time, so they just may have to go an extra block around. And then, let's see here, paving and concrete will start roughly October 18th and run through the 29th. That's when we're hoping construction will stop for the winter break. And then when we return after school's out will be the M66 water main. So with that, are there any questions for me? Perfect. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. At this time, we would like to open up the mic for public comment. So if anybody has anything they would like to bring to our attention or their thoughts, now is the time.
First of all, thank you for serving our community. Hi, Matt. I want to say thank you for all that you guys have done for our community, our school. I'm a concerned grandparent. I'm also a parent of students who have graduated from the local community. But I wanted to come out tonight and express my concern for what's going on in the schools recently. So I have the Michigan Constitution with us because July.
Will you
No,
introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I don't know everybody.
Okay, my name is Maria Gergridge.
Thank you.
I am a resident in Lake City, Misaki area, but I wanted to come out and invite you all, and especially now that I know that the mayor is here, because we have a concern with a lot of the things that are going on recently with what people don't know what's going on with the news, the school, the 7 spheres that shape our culture and society. So I have a Michigan Constitution which allows us, I'm going to read Article 4 right now, even though I don't have anything against anyone. It says, the people have a right to peaceably assemble, to consult for the common good, to instruct their representatives, and petition the government for readdress of grievances. But I don't have any grievance. What I do want to do is come out and invite you guys on August 14 at 12 noon. We have a gentleman who is a former terrorist jihadist who has been radically saved and given his life over to Jesus and wants to help make light of the things that have been going on, and they're because he came out of being from the Muslim Brotherhood, what's been going on with the education, the government, the media, and make sense of what's going on right now that many of us are not aware of. So I have these little invite cards. If you're welcome to come, you don't have to, but you get to. And so then I'm going to encourage you on page 36 on the Michigan Constitution. If you don't have your Michigan Constitution, I'd like to encourage you all to get a copy of it because it's very powerful and it tells you your authority and our constitutional rights. Because if we don't know our Constitution, we don't know when our rights are being violated. So, number 36, on page 36, encouragement of education. First of all, it says religion, morality, and the knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools, and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. Anything else, when the forefathers found this country, the number one thing that they did for public schools was to, number one, their only textbook was the Bible, was the Bible. And that Bible taught the students how to keep a moral and flee from the civil tyranny that was coming from Great Britain. So this public schools, I know nobody likes to talk about Jesus and nobody likes to talk about our Savior, but right here it's in the Michigan Constitution about religion. So I want to encourage you that try to stick with what is morally right, what we know is right, and does not violate the conscience of our students that are coming to this school and other public schools. And again, we're here to serve you, and you're here to serve our students. But we want to work together to make this a better place for our children and our children's children in the next generations. And hopefully they'll be growing up in the same freedom America that we did. Okay? So if you'd like, I have more information, and I have the little invite cards, which I think, if you guys would like one, I'd like to pass one out to you. Is that okay? Okay. And thank you very much for the few moments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for giving me the opportunity to talk with you. That's for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing. If you want to find Kamal Salim's testimony on YouTube, you can find quite a few of them because he exposes the Muslim agenda and how it's trying to rewrite a lot of our history of the education of the children. And I just want parents and school board and everyone to be aware of what's really going on. Thank you again.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Smolligan. I've lived in this school district for 20 years now. I have 4 grandchildren in the McBain School District. And you have before you the thing that I'm going to read out loud right now. Many of my generation were raised with the impression that magic and witchcraft is harmless and fun. I can attest from personal experience since that time that this impression is utterly false. Furthermore, in the USA, witchcraft is considered a religion and receives all the rights, privileges, and protections afforded it as such under our Constitution. The math game Prodigy is used by 100 million people nationwide, teachers, students, and parents, including here in McBain schools. It is marketed as an individualized math enrichment program. The problem that I have with it is that it displays every earmark of witchcraft. This includes use of magic, the elements, casting spells, the use of wands, gaining power, and violent destruction. While the Prodigy math game is free to schools and families, it comes with the cost of further familiarizing our children with the religion of witchcraft and magic. This math game also provides practice time to develop this religion as it goes through age-appropriate math skills. If parents practice or subject their children to witchcraft or any other religion in their homes, that's their choice. I object, however, to its inclusion into the curriculum here in McBain or in any other school across our nation. Our government and any branch, committee, or department thereof erroneously interprets the Constitution as including the separation of church and state. If that is the law of the land at this time, we should expect to be completely free from any religion in our school system. If that is the case, then why is the Prodigy math game, which promotes the practice of the religion of witchcraft, allowed, while the practice or even evidence of Christianity has been, over time, methodically pulled out of our schools, McBain included? With this in mind, I respectfully request that you find and implement an alternative to Prodigy for enhancing math skills in the students of McBain rural agricultural schools, and I'd gladly volunteer to participate in any investigative committee that may result from this request. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy. I guess Mr. Acom or principal, I guess I don't really know anything about this, to be honest, and I don't know if Ryan or Mr. Mead would have any comment on this.
So I'm Marcus Mead, I'm the middle school principal, but I worked as an elementary teacher for the last couple of years. And so I am a little bit familiar with Prodigy, just from personal experience. It was my least favorite of all the apps that we use. I never really thought of it in terms of the witchcraft element, but I do feel like it is much more gamey and a lot less math. There are much better apps, in my personal opinion, than Prodigy that will allow kids to get better at math without the questionable elements and the fact that we have a parent expressing concern about. That's another factor that you might want to look at. From what I've seen, the kids have got little avatars, little characters, and they run around a virtual world, and they get into battles with dragons and different things. It's kind of a fantasy-oriented game, and they do cast spells. Different families might come to different conclusions as far as, is it appropriate for my child, but is it necessary for us to be using that app? It is not. There are lots of other apps that we might want to look at instead. It's a good conversation to have.
Okay, thank you.
Probably a good time with new administration that we look at all of our apps and the use of them and what apps are outdated and we no longer need to implement. So definitely we can put that under review.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have public comment? Nobody? Jeremy, you got something to say? Okay. All right, I'm just picking on you. Okay, come on up.
I visited Jennifer Brown last week, and one thing she told me that the school system was now going to tell the children that they can't believe anything that they read, and I don't know if this is true, or if this is what McBain School is doing. They can't believe anything that they read, they see, or they hear. They're going to have the choice to make that own decision for themselves. They come to school to learn and not to be giving suggestions of you make the choice of what you're going to believe. That's an open door for a lot of suggestions for the kids to kind of lead themselves. But we know that parents are supposed to train up the children the way they should go. But I think that if that's how it's going to be, that the children are going to make their own decisions or say, well, you can't believe nothing that you read or see or hear. There are moral truths. There are absolutes truths. Now, I would suggest that maybe, I'm hoping that's not true. I'm hoping that that's not the way McBain School's going, because I know I'm going to go to the Lake City one, because that's where my grandchildren are at. And just hoping that people are more aware of what we're really teaching and take our jobs to heart, because our kids do matter. And one day they will be the leaders. And we want them to grow up in the same freedom and the same, we don't like the world we're living in right now, but if we can make a change together, because we're called to work together. These are our future generations, and God has placed them in our hands. These lives are precious. They're in our hands. And we have the responsibility. The Bible says one generation shall tell the next generation and declare the works of God. And that's what we're supposed to do, is help and train up our children the best way that we can, so that they will be the best future leaders. I'd like one day for a child to stand up and say, I'm from Lake City or McBain, and I'm the president now because of what they taught me in my school. So I just want to say, let's just take to heart, the things that we're teaching the next generation. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I didn't know if that was true or not. I just know that when she said that to me, I don't know which school is teaching it. I'm just hoping it's not in our local schools around here. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, at this time, public comment is closed. Moving on to routine matters, we need to approve our previous agenda.
I think we did that already.
We already did that.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we did that.
Superintendent, you're next.
Well, thank you. I think we're all here for the back-to-school plan for next year. Does the board have any questions on the plan that was shared with you, the recommended plan at this time?
I have a couple.
Okay.
First one's with the buses. I understand that our hands are tied there.
Yes.
Is that gonna, I assume that's gonna significantly increase our drop-off rate for students being dropped off at school?
Oh, for car riders? I can't answer that, as I was not here last year so I guess what he's asking is, so there's a federal mandate that students wear masks on buses. That includes school buses. They're considered public transportation. That is something that is out of the board's hands and out of my hands. It's required by law. So students that will be riding the buses will need to mask. We will provide masks for students that ride buses. As far as, does that increase car riders? I would say most districts did increase car riders the previous year. Will that carry over until this year? I can't answer that.
Okay. And if we do get a mandate that comes down that we have to mask, once that's over, we will revert back to our plan, correct?
Say that one more time.
If
On
it
the
comes
buses?
down 2 months, no, on the masking in school.
Yes.
If in 2 months there's a spike and we're forced to mask, once that mandate is over, we'll revert back to this plan, correct?
Yes, so currently the plan would be for schools or for students to attend school without masks starting the school year. Right now, masking is just a suggestion. It is not a mandate. It is not required. But if it comes down from the health department that we are required, mandated to mask, we will need to follow through with that, as we are bound by the law to follow that under communicable diseases. If that is lifted again, I would say yes. I mean, at this time, that we would revert back to no masks.
That's all I have.
I just got one question too. I think last year this was voted on every month, our plan. Is that the plan going forward for this year, or are we just going to
Right. So it was voted on every month last year. That was a requirement from the state of Michigan. I believe it was a requirement from the Department of Education, if I remember correctly. That was part of their Return to Learn plan, that it was required that the boards vote on the plan because it was ever changing, right? We had some districts that closed down and their plan changed to distance learning for a month. Well, the board had to approve and vote on that plan. So as of right now, it is not required that the board approves plans, but I would also like to give fair warning to everyone. This could change in 2 weeks, this could change in 3 weeks, this could change tomorrow, just like last year. It is my hope that we have a seamless school year where we don't have closures, we don't have distance learning, we don't have that, but I cannot guarantee that. And just remember that we are here for students. We are here for their learning, for their success, for their social emotional learning, and we will do everything that we can to provide the best education and that we can for them. But sometimes we have to make decisions that we don't agree with because the law mandates that. So yes, it is possible that we close down, that we have distance learning. It is my hopes that that does not happen.
Okay.
I know another big topic that I'll just hit on now is quarantining of students. Right now, I would love to say we do not have to quarantine students, and that's what we are doing going forward, okay? If your student or staff member has symptoms or suspected COVID-19 or tests positive for COVID, they will have to follow the communicable disease laws by the Department of Health and Human Services, just like if it was the chicken pox. That's kind of where we're at now. I have not received any additional updates on if a student is a close contact, do we have to quarantine them? Can a negative test bring the student back? I would love for that to be a possibility. But right now, we still have the same number of questions that we don't have answers to as far as guidance. You know, I think Mrs. Abrahamson said it the best at the last board meeting. It's really resonated with me is, you know, we've had a summer of freedom and now school's going to come back and we're going to be locked down again, putting requirements on our students that have just experienced 3 months of freedom. You know, and that's going to be hard on social emotional learning for kids.
Scott, can you elaborate a little bit more on the quarantine thing? I'm a little bit confused. On a practical basis, if there's a fifth grader that comes down with COVID and tests positive, so in our previous plan, that pretty much quarantined that class or a good portion of it, whatever. And am I reading this right now to say that if there's a confirmed case that the quarantining will depend more upon symptoms and that type of thing? Yeah, that would be my hopes. If the health department comes out and says you need a quarantine 6-foot radius, that's a mandate, that's a requirement, then that's what we'll have to do. But right now I'm going into the school year that if it's symptomatic Based on
and
symptoms.
test positive, then that student will need to follow the guidelines.
So what is the health department saying right now? Are they saying that, or aren't they saying anything?
When we left off the school year last May, they switched in the middle of May to say that if your child was within a 3-foot radius for 15 minutes in a 24-hour period, then they had to quarantine. On the current guidelines, it does say that you will not need to quarantine if everyone is properly masked. Then that quarantine is not required. We have not heard what the guidelines will be for quarantining next year. We scheduled this meeting, and oddly enough, 2 days later, the health department scheduled a meeting for July 29th, which is Thursday. So I hope to find out more information there.
So as of now, our quarantine, just to make sure we're clear, our quarantine is based on symptoms.
At this time.
At this time. At this night.
It is subject to change, yes.
When will the meeting on Wednesday's information be shared?
I believe it's Thursdays, the 29th.
sorry.
That's okay.
Whatever.
I would share it with the board as soon as I could. I imagine that there's going to be a lot more unknowns than there are knowns after that meeting. I will share with the community as I see fit as well, and the staff and parents as well. It's difficult, like last year, it was hard to communicate. It wasn't hard, but it was, I should say it was easy to communicate, but it was hard to deliver the message when it changed the next day. And it was very difficult when the community did not understand that you got the same information the same time I did, or sometimes before I did. The mandates came out and we did not know them. So, but no, the communication is the key, and we will do our best as administrators to continually communicate the requirements.
You got any feeling on what level they're, as far as the state, are they going to leave it more locally controlled, or are they going to, I mean, you don't?
I haven't heard anything. It's been pretty silent. I would hope it would be more regionally and locally controlled, as it was at the previous year at the beginning. I don't know if you remember, we had areas, and each area was in a certain stage. Because I think that northern Michigan could definitely have a little more freedom than southern Michigan, depending on the situation. I mean, we could very easily have an outbreak in Missaukee County, and we might have to have a little bit more restrictions.
So Scott, what you've outlined here tonight, this is what you're proposing that we communicate to the parents now.
It is what I'm proposing, yes.
Okay, and then we would update as more clarification becomes available or more restrictions or whatever.
Absolutely. Trying to just release this now to try to alleviate some anxiety for parents and students and staff of kind of a plan going forward and what that looks like. An additional note on this is that McBain will not be offering virtual instruction for students unless the school is closed down, and we will be offering distance learning or remote learning again. But we will not be offering virtual meals or virtual instruction for students.
If somebody wanted to stay virtual, what would be their options?
I would recommend contacting your child's school office, or they could even contact myself. There are other schools out there that are continuing with virtual instruction, and there are virtual charter schools as well that's all they do is virtual instruction, and would perhaps provide a better benefit to the student's education than what we had in the past. I mean, we did a nice job, a good job, but it wasn't great. It could be improved upon.
So they would not be enrolled here then?
That would be their decision if they wanted a school of choice out.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think it's my understanding in here that we will not be testing student athletes either, correct?
Not at this time. That was lifted in June 22nd, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
However, if students want to compete in MHSA, we have to follow the MDHHS and MHSAA guidelines. Those could change too, where athletes do get tested. It would be my hopes that doesn't happen.
Scott, do you know, have you been contacted about a second vaccination clinic here at school?
Yeah, I talked with the McBain Pharmacy, and they will be offering, I need to follow up with them next week, first week of August. They'll be having, their hopes is to have a vaccine clinic during the open house, which is August 17th from 5 to 7 in the parking lot, if people are interested. And vaccinations are not required to attend school. That is not a requirement. Could it be a requirement down the road? It's possible, just like other vaccinations kids are required to have, but at this time it is not a requirement. And if it becomes a requirement, I would believe that you could also get a waiver from the Department of Health and Human Services, just like the vaccinations that are currently required.
One of the bullet points on page 3, I think, is it talks about conducting screening. What does that refer to specifically?
Yep, that would be like what we did in the past year, where you have for staff, I'm sure they probably had it in a Google form or Google Docs somehow, where they would just click, go through, and making sure that you didn't have a cough, you didn't have a fever.
okay.
Kind of self-monitoring at home. Even for students, like if your kid's not feeling well, please keep them home. It's not the year to tough it out again, right? If they say they have a runny nose or cough, keep them home, just like we would ask any other year.
So that's not testing, that's just a.
Yeah, that's just screening.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Scott? Okay, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
At this time, it's time to move on to our one and only action item for the night, and that is to approve the return to school plan for 2021 and 2022.
I'd motion.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support to approve the plan that we have in front of us. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, at this time, we would like to open the mic back up to any public comment. If anybody has anything they would like to add, please come forward, and if you would state your name.
Good evening, I'm Lindsay Zeiderveen. Thank you guys for all the work you did and the back-to-school plan. I know it was stressful and it was a lot to go through, and your hard work and time are appreciated. I just had a couple questions, things that came up reading over the plan. Just to confirm, when it says masks are optional, is that going to be for students and staff, or just the students?
That'd be students and staff.
Okay, so our
Optional.
teachers won't be wearing them unless they want to?
If they choose to.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. And then, is the school going to be open back up, per se, for parents to go in with their kindergartners or helping at class parties and things like that?
We haven't discussed that to great length at this time.
Okay.
We would probably limit visitors as well, just for school safety.
Sure.
You know, school shootings sadly have not gone away, different things like that. We have to keep that in mind as far as safety of the students.
Mm-hmm.
But we really haven't, as administrators, touched on that at all,
Okay.
on what that would look like.
Okay. And then one last thing. I know at the meeting 2 weeks ago, you said that there was going to be some changes or the possibility of changes. Do you have a plan for what pickup and drop-off is going to look like this year?
It is a work in motion. Yes, we have a plan. We're going to actually kind of simulate that plan tomorrow with buses. We're going to talk about that plan at the next board meeting. See how I keep baiting you guys to attend board meetings? So we will present that plan at the next board meeting, and make sure that we communicate it for those next 2 weeks to make sure that everyone understands it. And I'm just going to put the caveat out there now. It looks great on paper, but when everyone starts driving here, there's going to probably be some hiccups, so.
Totally understandable. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay. That gave me a question, too. Amy Smolligan again. I've been a member of the Kids Hope USA volunteer program that comes into the schools for many years, and that has been done away with because of all the restrictions. So my question is, will that be started up again?
That would be my hopes, that it would. Again, we're still waiting on some guidance and different things like that, but it also may be I don't know what Kids Hope's policies are either on coming in, so.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm sure watchdogs will be a discussion at some point as
Yep,
well.
absolutely.
Yes. Anyone else have anything they would like to say? Okay. Thanks to all who spoke. Appreciate that. I guess that concludes our meeting, so if I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned.